Cheech here with Fly Fish Food, and we have an awesome fly for you today. It's kind of like a Grim Reaper. The tail on it's constructed, it's pokey in parts, it moves all through the water. And we can't call it a Grim Reaper, so we're just going to call it what happens if you mix a Grim Reaper and a streamer. It's the Grim Streaper. So there you have it. Grim Streaper coming right up.
That's a big brown.
This is a cool fly I've been playing with. This is just kind of a creative bug I've been messing with a little bit. But it swims great in the water. You can use it as a jig streamer or as a carp fly, any of that stuff. But we're going to have a little bit of fun with some latex fly tying materials here. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to secure a bead. I think this is a size 14. You can do it on pretty much any size. But this is a 14 with a pretty healthy bead. What is this? A 3.2 mil bead on it. This is going to be a black and red combo. We're going to just dress this, and we're going to show you now how to build this. For the tail on the Grim Streaper, there are 3 materials that we're going to glue together. The first one is Nymph Wrap by Fulling Mill. The next one is Exo Skin. And then I'm going to throw in some Micro Minnow Dub to this. Finish it off with some glue. But these materials are just glued together with some super glue, and it actually stays together really nice. So I'll show you how to do that. We'll farm off a piece of this 2 millimeter. It's just a latex material. And then with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a section about like this. I've found that really sharp scissors matter in this project that we're doing here. I'll square it up a little bit. All right, so I'm going to take the Exo Skin. Sometimes one side's a little darker than the other, so just choose the darkest side. And I'm going to come in about just what I want is for this portion, if you can see that, to be about 2 millimeters across on the bottom of this forked tail. So I'll take this and just kind of curve it slightly as I go all the way to that tip, just like that. And then I'll do that on the other side, leaving about 2 mil here. Okay, now once I get to here, I'm just going to come in straight from the point on this side and just cut a straight line to about 2 mil up from the base of this. So right there. Flip it over and then just do that same cut on the other side, and it's a lot easier. And then we have our little forked tail. All right. You can get crazy with the designs. You can make them shorter, fatter, longer, any of that stuff. So once I have the fork built, I'm going to take a little bit of Cement. This is a super glue product, just a tiny little dab. He barely gets the latex wet. And I'll just take this piece of 2 mil and I'll lay that down right on top. Gentle press. Once it's laying on top, I can take a bodkin and just push it down, and that will be super durable. That's a bond that's already almost at 100% strength. Okay, now in my creative brain I figured that's not enough, and I want this one to be fished for carp, or you could use it as a jig streamer, but it's just going to have a little bit of weird movement. So I'm going to take some of this Micro Minnow Dub.
Could just come out a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
Right there.
Yep.
I'm going to take some of this Micro Minnow Dub now, and I'm just going to preen it in my fingers a little bit. And I just want a little tuft like that. So I'll cut this in half. And I'm just going to super glue that here somehow. Okay. So again, I'm going to take the smallest dab of that super glue. Good. And I'm just going to kind of lay that dubbing right on top of the super glue. And I'll take my bodkin now and just kind of push that down into the super glue a little bit. Gather the sides, and you will glue yourself to your fly a few times here. A lot harder to do this on camera. So once you get it down, just mash all that dubbing into the super glue, and then you'll end up with something that looks kind of like this, like that. Okay. Now, I really didn't like the way that that dubbing looked, so I wanted to clean that up too. So we'll come in here and maybe trim up any of the stragglers here by the head, and then just use your favorite colored resin. There are all kinds of it that works. This is a Gulf Ambulance, but you can use a lot of different things. So you can see how I'm just kind of getting the thick resin on there and pulling it upward. And then I'll just let that settle down into that resin a little bit. It's pretty thick. You can even do that with clear resin. And then once it's to the point where I want it, I'll just zap that. You can see it's got a really cool fluorescence to it. Now, this is durable. So if I took this and I'm grabbing the dubbing, I can stretch this just by holding on to that dubbing. So it's on there. I mean, I'm guessing a fish will rip this whole tail off at some point when you're fishing it, but just like any fly. But that's a really super cool tail for the Grim Streaper. Once we have the tail made, we're going to tie that in. I don't know, the length, you can do it however much you want, but the longer it is, the more chance you have of it fouling. So I'll just take that whole, I'm going to cut that off. We're going to put a pretty beefy dubbing loop. All right, we'll trim that off and coat that down. So there's our tail for the fly. You notice how the hot spot, I tied it facing down because this hook will ride hook point up. All right, the rest of the fly is pretty straightforward. This is a super cool material from Fulling Mill called Seal X dub. This is called Bibio. It's a mix of, some black and some red, maybe a little claret in there, but it's a really cool color for all kinds of stuff. I'm just going to make a dubbing loop, close off my dubbing loop, and then take my thread forward to the front. And then we'll just load up a dubbing loop big enough to cover up a size 14 short shank jig hook, which shouldn't need too much. Maybe one more pinch. There we are. All right, we'll twist that up. And I will give a shout out. I'm using the Smayan twister today with the custom purple handle. I just have to show that off. It's really cool. Brigham hates it. He's a Denver Broncos fan though, so that's all you need to know. All right, so once I have my dubbing loop made, I'm just going to wrap that forward all the way to the bead. And there's one final step, but we're going to brush this out a little bit first. For those of you who've tied with real seal, it really isn't a very long material. It's relatively short, so that's a pretty good representation. Then I'm going to take some more of this red micro minnow dub, just like a little whisper of it. That's probably even too much. So just a little guy like that. We'll spread that all out and we'll just put it and mash it around the fly and tie it in clump style. A few turns and then push it back over on top of itself. And we'll whip finish and then we'll pretty it up a little bit. Add whatever glue you like. There's no wrong way to do it. And I'll brush that out. If I have too much red, I can just grab this and just kind of pull it out aggressively until you're set with what you want. There you go. That's the Grim Streaper. Carp, bass, trout, really nothing can stand up, can stand in the way of this bug and not get absolutely wrecked.